Okay, so it's lesson 9. We're actually recording from our morning section because our Friday afternoon section is going to be a little bit abbreviated this week. So we've got our music store. We'll have a look at what we did last week. So we rebuilt the store page so that it would display a list of genres in this kind of friendlier format. And then we could click on any genre to get the list of albums. We have add to cart buttons that right now don't do anything. So this is going to be the first thing we want to do. So we want to build an add to cart function that's going to interact with our database and actually save that album to the database into the user's shopping cart. After we add an item to cart, what should happen in our browser? What typically do you expect to see when you're shopping online after you put something in your shopping cart? What do you usually see, Brando? Okay, that would be one thing potentially we could do, is add an icon. What page do usually we see? Yeah, typically, well, there's usually one of two ways. So either we'll have a little kind of pop-up cart, which we could do, but that's going to involve Ajax, which would take the rest of class just to implement. So I don't think we'll do the little pop-up cart. We'll just take the user to a shopping cart page that will show them all the contents of their current cart. What kinds of things would you expect to see on that page? What details are going to be on the shopping cart page? Yeah, we'd want to see every item in the cart, what the quantity is, what the price is. And then we'd probably have a few buttons or options. What buttons or options are going to be on that page? Yep. Okay, so we'll have the checkout. We won't do a wish list. Or what else will we definitely have besides checkout? We could do wish list. Cool. Yeah, we may want to also prompt them to keep shopping, right? Buy more stuff and give us more money. So on that page, we'll have buttons at the bottom to keep shopping or to check out. So let's open up our shopping cart controller. Sorry, our store controller, which we do have open from last week. So the first thing we need in here is we need an add to cart method. I'll just go down to the bottom. Store add to cart. We can start creating a new method called Does this method need any information? We call add to cart. Is there any data that we should pass into it? Right, we need to know what item is it. Okay, so what data type is that going to be, May? What will be the type of our parameter? Here's the page, right? So what data type is that? Yeah, we want to pass in an integer that represents the ID of that product. We're going to pass an album ID in here. So now we're going to interact with our cart model, which we haven't really used. Here's what it looks like. There's a primary key, which is just an auto-incrementing ID. So the database is going to assign that. We'll have a cart ID. The cart ID is for one user's shopping experience. So if one person puts multiple items in the cart, we need to know that all those items belong to that same shopper. And then each individual album that gets added and the quantity and when they put it in their cart. It's just a primary key. So it's just a unique identifier that they're using. So when we hit add to cart, we're going to create a new record in the cart table. We're going to create and save new cart item. And down at the bottom, we're going to load the shopping cart page. So that's what we want to have happen here. So we're not going to load a view called add to cart. We'll redirect to a different method, a different view called shopping cart that will display the contents of the user's cart. We're going to create a new cart object, and we need to set up the values for cart ID, album ID, count, and date created, and then we can save it to the database. So the cart ID for the moment, I'm just going to hard code this value in. We'll come back to this. We're going to have to do some more work here. So don't put Rich's cart as your cart ID, just hard code in your own name for now, your own student number. Where do we get the album ID from? Right, from the parameter. So whatever value we get passed in, that's the album we will save. Now we don't actually have a quantity. At the moment, we'll just hard code it to 1. The date created is just a timestamp. We can get the current time, date and time. And C# with the date time library has a now method that'll return the current date and time. So we've created a new cart object in memory. And we've basically hard coded 3 of the 4 properties. The only thing that will be dynamic is the album ID. And that'll get passed in based on the button the user clicked. Then we add this new cart item, save that to the database. So this will create a new object in memory and save it to our cart table. We'll change this after. We want to get this saving and working with our blue buttons, and then we'll come back and deal with the cart ID in a bit. This is just kind of temporary. Lastly, instead of returning a view, we're going to do a redirect. We're going to build a separate method in view called shopping cart, and that will load once we're done adding this item to the cart. We won't build this yet, so for the moment when we run this, we're going to get a 404 error. We'll say shopping cart doesn't exist, that's okay. We'll then just go and look in the database and see if the item actually got saved. So here's our controller method for now. I said we'll come back and deal with this part in a bit. So I'm going to build. And then we want to open up our albums view because right now our add to cart buttons don't do anything. We need to get those buttons to call our add to cart method and also pass in the album ID. So right now when I go here, I can click, but nothing happens on those buttons. So we'll go into views, store and albums. So we created this last week. So we're going to make these buttons links that will go to our add to cart method and also put the album ID on the end of those links. So we're just wrap this inside it. Well, that was fun. I'm going to move my end anchor tag here. So now when we click the button, it's going to call our add to cart method and pass in the album ID. So this value is going to be different for every one of those buttons. So if we check the status bar on the bottom left, when my page reloads, so notice now on my first album, we see album ID is 609 in the status bar, 612. We can see those album IDs changing. Matt? So we're calling our store controller's add to cart method, and we're passing in an album ID parameter. Because as Manny said, that was the integer parameter we defined in our method. So if you click your add to cart button now, you should get a 404 error at store shopping cart. That's what we would expect. So now we should look in the database and see, did the item actually get added to the carts table? So I'm going to open up my database, and I know a number of you are using my database. That's fine. Doesn't really matter. We can have a look at the carts table both before and after we click add to cart. So I'll just set up a quick query so we can look and see what's in here. Okay, so here's what's in here. So the last record ID, the most current one is record ID 133, which was from my Monday class on November 5th. I'm going to try to add to cart. Okay, well that suggests it probably worked because it did, my code got all the way down to the last line, which is redirecting me to my shopping cart, which we haven't built yet. So 404 is what we would expect. So you can see it worked. It added album ID, time-stamped just a few seconds ago, and it gives us a cart ID of Rich's temp cart. If you're using my database, make sure you use something other than Rich's temp cart for your ID. That way we can distinguish your purchases from my purchases. Right? They shouldn't all appear together. So now if I go and add a separate album to the cart, it's going to use the same cart ID. So now I basically have two items in my shopping cart right now. So you'll notice if you look at the previous records in the cart table, maybe a little hard to see the values, but for those of you close enough to see the screen, what do you notice about the cart IDs? So you see usernames in the cart ID, okay, but they don't all have usernames. What else do you see besides the usernames? Yeah, some kind of like random. So why do you suppose some of them would have a username and some have this kind of random ID? Matt? Exactly. So when someone's logged in, we want to attach the shopping cart to their username. This way also, if they don't check out, but they come back to the site later, they can keep shopping and those items will still be in their cart, right? You notice on a site like Amazon, it will do this. If you put items in your cart when you're logged in, but you don't complete the order, if you come back another day and you log back in, those items will still show in your cart. Brando, you'll see it right in the little icon. Right? It'll show you how many items you put in your cart in the past. So what would these be? So when do we get kind of these values instead of the usernames? Right. Okay. So in this case, where we have these kind of random cart IDs, these are anonymous users. These are people who are shopping, but they either don't have an account yet, or they have an account, but they're shopping and they haven't logged in. So once if they, and this is going to get lost once the user leaves the site and comes back. So this is session based. So if I put items in my cart right now as an anonymous user, but I leave the site and I come back another time, I'm going to get a different cart ID. So in effect, those items are kind of abandoned. Now, we could just delete them, but usually business owners don't want us to delete them, right? Because this is actually useful information. Why would, if we owned the music store, where's the value in knowing what items people put in their cart but never actually purchased? Why would we want to know that? Omar? Right. So I think, well, maybe I need to put this product on. What products do people keep? Are they interested enough to put in their cart, but they don't actually buy? Right. So maybe I need a promotion. Maybe I need a sale on these products because people are clicking on them. They're putting them in their shopping cart, but many times they're not actually going through and paying for them. So they're interested, but they're not interested quite enough. So what do I do to make them more interested and get them to actually buy? So we've just for now hard coded in this. So we've basically now got the two scenarios. The user's logged in. If they're logged in, we want to use their username to identify their cart. And that way the cart persists across multiple sessions. If they're anonymous, we're going to generate some kind of random but unique string and attach it to the user session. So as they're shopping, we can group all those items together. And then when they go to check out, at that point, we'll force them to either register or log in. Most sites, yes, some sites give you a checkout as a guest option. Our music store isn't going to do that. If you want to buy, you have to create an account. And many sites still force you to create an account if you're going to actually buy. So we're going to need to deal with this. We're going to create a variable called current cart ID. And then we're going to create and call a method called getCartID. So this method is going to basically check if the user's logged in. If they're logged in, we want to take their username and put that in this as a session variable. If not, we'll generate one of these random strings and use that as the cart ID. So we've got an error here, so I'm going to also change this where I put in Rich's temp cart. We'll now use our current cart ID variable. It's complaining because it's saying there's no, doesn't have a value yet. We haven't used sessions in .NET before. Simpler than using them in PHP where we have to call the clunky session start method anytime we use a session variable. We don't need to do that in ASP.NET. So we'll create a variable to hold the cart ID. We're going to call this method that will determine if they're logged in or not, and then read the value, and then we'll just stick this session variable in our local variable. So now we'll need to write this method. So if I right click on it, there's no view, let's see. I'll just do this. I want to generate a method called getCardID. So now our error goes away. And we'll just write our method. So we've got three scenarios, basically. We got to check if they're logged in and we already have a card ID in the session, if they're not logged in and we already have a card ID in the session, or the session card ID is empty, meaning this is their first item, we need to, and they're not logged in, we need to generate an ID. Make sure I can do this the right way. Okay. This out. So if our session variable is null, that means they have no current shopping cart. They're putting their first item in. So if they're logged in, we're just going to take their username and store that in the session. So we already know who they are, so that's going to be their card ID. If they're not logged in, you need to generate one of these random strings, unique strings, and use that instead. The .NET framework has a class for this that we can use. We're going to use the class called GUID. And you can see Visual Studio says GUID represents a globally unique identifier. So it will ensure that this is unique, so no two people will get the same value. And on every session, it will be unique as well. And this library has a method called new GUID history. That's this method. This will generate values that look like these. They basically look like hashed passwords. So kind of a seemingly random string of letters and numbers that's unique. So that's what this new GUID method will generate. So every time we add to cart, we're going to check if we already have a cart ID. If we already have one, we don't need to do anything. We've already got a value in the session. But if this is the user's first item, we're going to check if they're logged in. And if they are, we'll attach their username in the session. If they're not logged in, we're going to generate a new unique string and attach that. So we added these three lines. And then we replaced my hard-coded string that said Rich's temp cart with our current cart variable. So I'm going to compile. We'll basically orphan those two records. And now I'm going to try in two different browsers. I'm going to shop in one browser where I'm logged in and a different browser where I'm anonymous. So when I'm logged in, my username should be attached to my items. And where I'm not logged in, it should give me some random GUID as my card ID. So we'll try this out. So I'll go back to my store. So I'm anonymous. You don't see my username. I'll add one item and two items. So now it's given me, notice, the same card ID because we're storing it in the session. So these two items are grouped together, which is good because both of them are me. If I go to a different browser and add the same two items, I should have a different card ID. So I'll just go to Chrome. We can try this out here. I'll add the same two albums, 609 and 612. So my Firefox ID starts with 2E4 and my Chrome starts with 3E9. Okay? So it's like I'm two totally separate people because they're separate sessions in different browsers. Now I'm going to log in, maybe over in Firefox. We should see once I log in, that those items get attached to my username instead. So I'll add the same items, my username's here. Oh, well, that's because I already have an active session. Oops, I'll have to do this in a, not very smart of me. Go to a private window with a new session. Okay. So now they're attached to my username, these items. So if I do this when I'm logged in, I can actually close my browser, come back, put more items in, and these items will still be in my cart if I'm logged in. So there's our add to cart. So our next step is to generate our shopping cart method and view, so we can actually see what's in the current cart with the options that we talked about with keep shopping or checkout. So let's make a new method. I'll go down to the bottom here. So we're going to need some data on this page. What will we do? We said that this page, Brando had said this page should show the products, the quantity, and the price of every item in our cart. So we will want to return a view. How do we get those items? We're adding them to the cart table when we click add to cart. So how can we show them on this page? Cool. We will need the session ID. Okay, so that's probably, that's actually a good idea. We'll use we're going to use the session because we don't want all the items in the cart table, only this user's items. Well, after we add, it will redirect. When we call redirect, it runs this method. So this redirect calls this method. So once we've got the current cart ID from the session, how do we get the list of items attached to the session? Where are they stored? Where are they stored? Cool. Yeah, we have to use the cart model to query the database and get these items for the right cart ID. So we'll use the cart model. We'll pass in the where clause. So this will give us all of the records in the cart table for this particular cart ID. We don't want all the records in the cart table, only the ones that are attached to this user session or this user's login. So this will give us a list of cart items. How do we pass this to the view? Either of you? Yeah, well, we're listing it here. How do we pass it to the view? When we return the view, we're going to pass it our list of data. We're going to load a view called shopping cart and pass it all of the items in the cart table for the current session ID. The count, that's how many of this product. For the moment, we're just hard coding it as one because we didn't put any quantity box on here. I guess we could. I guess we could put like a little drop down here. Yeah, so I guess we could. Well, you know what? We'll finish this. We'll come back. We could put a little drop down with a quantity. So when they hit add to cart instead of 2 parameters, we'll have to think about that. Yeah, we'd also need to pass in the quantity to add to cart. So we'll add that in a minute. So we can actually use scaffolding to build this page, right? Our view is going to get a list of cart items. So the model will be IEnumerable. So we can actually build the view automatically like this. If I right click my method name and choose add view, we want the name to be shopping cart. Instead of an empty template, which of these templates do we want? Yeah, we want a list, right? Because we want to display all of the items in the cart. So I'll pick list template. Which model would the list be built on? Which table are we querying? Right. So we want a list from the cart table. Now we'll still have to modify this page a little bit, but it's going to build most of the view for us this way. We call it shopping cart. The template is list, and the model class is cart. So let's add that. And then we can try this again. So notice it gives us an IEnumerable of type cart, and it builds a table with the items in the user shopping cart. So we're going to need to make some changes to it, but it should be at least partly functional for now. So I'll build. And now if I just, let's say I'll just add something else to my cart. So I'm logged in here. So my items should persist even though my session is starting again. So I'll add a third album here. So here's the shopping cart page. So all of my items that were in here from before, so some of these were in my cart from Monday. When I'm not logged in, my shopping cart should be empty over here. Okay. Got it. So what we need to do in this method is we need to actually call our get cart ID method again, so that if the session is null, we fill it either with the username or our random GUID. So just like we called in add to cart, the first thing we did is call get cart ID. We need to call it again on the shopping cart page. So in case it doesn't exist, we need to call it first. So if they're just coming to the store, they have nothing in their session, they haven't put anything in, we're then generating a session ID from their username or else from a random string. Sorry, I didn't mean to ignore your question earlier. I think I didn't totally understand what you were getting at. You were thinking ahead of me. So now when I'm not logged in, I should just get an empty cart instead of this error. Right, so we've got an empty cart because I'm not logged in, it's a new session. Right, so as I add and go back, right, so it's putting these items in my cart. Now we should probably make some changes to this page. What things should we modify here? Cool. Yeah, the card ID we can hide or just delete. What else should we change, Brando? Yep. Yeah, in fact, well, we maybe don't even necessarily need, the links we can get rid of. The only link we're going to keep is this one. We also don't need the date either, really, right? We basically just need the title and the count. Anything else we should do? Price. Yeah, we probably want to include the price. Matt? Yeah, we can include the little thumbnail of the art. We can even make this a link to the album details. Typically, you can click on the products in your cart and see the details view of those products. So we can make all these changes and then we can add keep shopping, checkout. There's one other thing we need to show in addition to the item price. Yeah, we probably want to show it, keep a running total, and at the bottom, show what's the total value of the user's cart. So let's make these modifications and then we can go back, Romulo, and maybe add the quantity as well to it. So our scaffolded view, it's not perfect, but it's a good start. So I'm going to start right at the top. Just put in a space. I'm going to get rid of the create new link at the top. We don't need that. I'll add a couple of classes here, table striped, table hover. So we can get rid of card ID and here we'll just have, we'll just have to put in a, just hard code it. And then we can get rid of the card ID here. Instead of the date created, we want the item.album.price. And we can get rid of our edit and details. And we're going to change this link. Instead of saying delete, our link can say remove. And it's going to call a remove from cart method, which we will add later. The scaffolding set up to automatically call a delete method. We won't have a delete method. We'll have add to cart and remove from cart. So now it'll look like this. We've got our price. We've got these remove links. Maybe we can make them red. We don't have to do this, but if I want to change the text on the link from blue to red, I'll add Bootstrap's text danger class onto the end. I'll just put on this section in blue. I'll change my link text. Blue, sorry, the red. So now we want to add some of those other things. We want to make these links. We can include the album art. And then at the bottom, we're going to want a continue shopping button here, a total here, and a big blue checkout button here. So the first thing we can do is we can turn these into links. So we could use action links, or we could just use standard HTML links. Albums details. This should make each album title a link to our details page. We'll just wrap that album title in an anchor tag. I'm just going to try this out and make sure it works. Whoops, I think that's supposed to be a question mark. Let's see if that's right. So they're links. Now it takes me to our album details. And we could probably add the thumbnail underneath. So this should show the album art, as Matt suggested, underneath the title. It's starting to kind of resemble a shopping cart we might actually have seen before. It looks fairly similar to Amazon's shopping cart page. So then down below my table, below my loop, we're going to add a footer row with continue shopping, checkout, and then we want to calculate the running total of the cart so we can display it in the footer. So we can either calculate that in the view itself as we're looping, or we could do a calculation in our controller and pass that value in like the view bag. Either one will work. So I'm going to add one more row, bottom of my table. My first column will just be empty. Second column is just going to have a link to the store. This one will say keep shopping. Fourth column, button. We'll make these buttons big and blue and noticeable, much more noticeable than our little red remove links. We don't generally want to encourage people to remove stuff from the cart. So we want those links to be not so noticeable. Big blue buttons are what we want people to do. Buy more stuff or pay for what you've already got. So we can put these here. And we should do the price, right? We want the total of the order to show up here. So we can actually do this right within our view. We can just create a variable at the top. And as we're looping through, we just multiply the price times the count for every album and add it on to our total. And then we can just display that total down in here. So up at the very top, I'll just create a variable, decimal, call it cart total. We'll initialize it to 0. So I've done that up here. Actually, I guess it'd be lowercase. So inside of our loop, we're going to add on so each time we go around, we're going to take the current album price and multiply it by the quantity and add that onto our running total. So every new album in the cart, we're going to increment this value. So down below, we can just format it as currency. That will print our cart total variable as currency. This is a .NET currency format. So this will use the server setting. So whatever the currency setting is for the web server, it will display with that currency. If our server is in Delhi, it will be formatted as rupees. Our servers in London, England, be formatted as British pounds. But it doesn't convert the values. Not that smart. It's just formatting in terms of the currency symbol and formatting. So now if we refresh, we should get our total here. If I go over to this one, right, I'll get a different total. So this page is basically done. We may have to do something with our remove in a bit. We should also add a link to the cart in our navigation bar. So the user has a way to always go to their cart. Right now, the only way to get here is either type the link directly or hit add to cart. So we should put a link to the cart in the nav bar so they can come here wherever they want. Now, oftentimes, many sites will show you the number of items in your cart. We'll think about that one. I'll mull that over if there's a fairly simple way for us to do it. Let's see. First, we'll put the link in, and I'm going to mull over a simple way how we could include a little number beside the cart link. So let's go to our shared layout. And let's just add the store. The link will we'll call the shopping cart method of our store controller. This is a public link. Anybody can see it. You don't have to be logged in because I can shop as an anonymous user. And as I'm shopping at any point, I should be able to hit that link and go to my cart. If we had more time, we'd do this as a little pop-up Ajax cart, but I think we're going to have to skip that. So now I've got my cart. So no matter where I am, I can get back here. Can anybody think of a quick way that we could add a little number beside our cart? How could we do it? Matt? Not a bad idea, but keep in mind, this link is going to be available on every page, right? On this page, we have all the items. So we're using the view to do this. I could be over on the about page and we'd still want the number to appear here. So how could we keep track of how many items are in the cart and make that value available everywhere? Yep, so we'd have to display it in the layout. What feature could we use so that that value is being stored no matter what page we're on? Good guess. The view bag's only one view at a time, though. And our layout file doesn't have its own controller method. Well, how are we storing? Think about it. So I've put items in my cart. I'm not logged in, right? Now I go back to the store. Didn't know Iron Maiden had a blues album, but anyway. How did it add this along with the other items that were already here? How does it know to group them together? Yes, where are we storing the cart ID? In the session. So if every time we add an item to cart, we update a session variable called like item count, we could then use that session variable in our nav bar because it's globally available no matter what page we're on. It depends if they're logged in or not. If they're not logged in, it would be reset, right? Just like the cart ID, because the session will get destroyed. But if they're logged in, then we could fetch the list of items from the database based on their username. and then populate the number of items based on that. Okay, so I think we could probably, then we'd have to call get card ID. Okay, I have to think through all of this. A little more complicated than I thought. We'll come back. I have an idea of how we'll have to do it. We'll see if we have time to do it. Because yes, that you're right, Joel. That works as they're adding to cart, but if they are new on the site, we don't have that session variable, which may cause it to bomb. I'll have to think about that one. We can also, though, we said we would maybe add the quantity here, right? Because right now we're always just putting 1 in. And hey, if somebody wants to buy 10 of an album, we're not going to stop them. So we've got our price. So on our albums view that we did last week, above our add to cart, let's maybe just put in a little, let's see, how would we do this? Oh, sorry. Our name is count. They can't order less than 1. I'm not sure this is going to work. Because then we're linking. No, I'll have to rethink that. That'll look right on the form, but we're not going to have the value. Let's just see. Looks like we can do it, but when I hit add, this is just linking. We'd have to use JavaScript to dynamically get that value. I think I'm going to have to leave that for now. Just comment that out. So for now, you get 1. So we can go to the cart. We should also have a remove from cart. So right now, these links don't do anything. Right? They call remove from cart, they pass in the ID, but nothing actually happens. So in this case, what we want to do is delete this record from the database and then reload the shopping cart page, and the cart should be updated. So we need a simple remove from cart method here. Going to be similar, but simpler than our add to cart. We just need to take the ID in, grab that cart ID, remove it, save, and reload. We'll write our remove from cart, and then we'll take a break. So this, we're going to look up this album from the cart table. Now we need two parameters. We need to know what album are we removing? What other value do we need to know besides which album to remove? Here's our table. So, Rando? Right, whose cart is it? We don't want to remove this album from everybody's shopping cart, just from this person's shopping cart. So we also need the cart ID. We'll get it from session. So we've got two parameters here. So that I managed to fit all of the line on. So go and select the current record in the database for this album and this user's cart. And then we want to remove this item. And save the changes. So again, we're going to redirect back to shopping cart. For this, we'll query the database again and give us the current updated list of cart items. So the item we've removed should disappear. Oh, and that should be returned. So if we try this out, we should now be able to remove from cart and see that that item gets removed from our shopping cart page and our total should decrease because the value of that item should get removed from our total. So here I'm logged in. So this is good. I don't have to put items in my cart again. They're still going to be attached to my username. So I'll try remove from this page. I can go to my cart. So my total is 71.92. If I remove something, oh, interesting. Okay, I think we're going to have to change our remove link. I think our ID got passed in as a null for some reason. Oh. These are shopping cart. Ah. Didn't actually pass in the album ID. It's actually passing in the primary key. Omar, you asked earlier, what did we need record ID for? That's the primary key. So we could actually just use this and our query is simpler. I was assuming we were passing in the album ID. It's actually passing in the primary key. So we can actually take this part. I can take this out. Delete this. This would be C. Where they're using record ID. So we can simplify our where clause. I'll try that again. I'm going to try to remove this last item, carry on. So it's gone. My cart total is lower. So our cart page is pretty much finished. Now I can keep shopping. It just takes me to the same place as my store. So we're going to take a break here. I'm going to stop our video stream. I will upload what we've done to GitHub so far. So when we come back, we want to build a checkout page that's going to require authentication. Users are going to have to log in at this point. They can shop anonymously, but once they go to checkout, they've got to log in or register at that point. And then we want us to give them billing information, and then we want to be able to save their order to the database and then show them a receipt page that has all the information about their order. And if we have time, we will integrate online payment and as well as an order history page. If you haven't already, if on Blackboard, it's in the week 10 folder, week 9 folder under registration and checkout. There's a link here to sign up. I don't know if we'll get to this or not, but to go, I want you to go here. There's the sign up form and create a free account for the Stripe payment gateway. We may or may not have time to use this today, but hopefully we will. But you will need an account for it. Okay, so take 30 seconds and sign up for the account. Hopefully we'll get to integrate it before we're done. So we will take 20 minutes. I will restart at 9:35.